to the International Mentoring Community, all things mentoring lounge, where we have conversations, chit chats. Hey, we just get down into it and see what's going on around mentoring, mentor, mentee, mentorship, anything to do with this notion of educating approach called mentoring. I'm Stephen Hobbs. I am one of the co-founders. Doug Lawrence is joining us. He is another co-founder of the International Mentoring Community. We'll introduce ourselves in a few minutes, just so you get to know who we are. I just want to encourage you to listen in so you can hear what is our traditional entry into the video, where I just share a little bit about what we're going to be covering. The topic today is the business of mentoring. Yes, no, and PO. And we'll get into a little bit more about what PO is. It's kind of a fun way to sort of look at the difference between yes and no. So we'll share a bit more about that. We're just going to do a little quick overview. What's a business? What's mentoring? And then we're going to take a look at 10 business essentials. So if you are going to start up a business with the mentoring shingle, so to speak, what would be 10 things you'd need to think about? And then we've got 5 considerations about your business if you're going to put it into motion. Some things that have come to Doug and I's attention over the years. We both have businesses associated with mentoring, and so we want to just pass along that. We anticipate that this will not be a long one, but you never know. Sometimes we say that, and Doug and I, instead of 30 minutes, we're at the 50-minute mark. But it's all great information. It's all great insights, ideas about mentoring, and today it's in connection to business. So again, just make sure you subscribe so you get notice of our weekly Wednesday morning 10 a.m. Mountain videos. So Doug, you want to introduce yourself in relation to IMC?
Yeah, my name is Doug Lawrence, and I'm, as Dr. Stephen had mentioned, I'm co-founder of the International Mentoring Community, and I also have my own practice with my own organization, Talent C. And with IMC, or the International Mentoring Community, I am the director of practice and outreach.
Great, thanks. So I have my own company called Wealth Movement, WELLTH, mentoring in connection to nature-informed entrepreneurs. And Doug is very much into the mental health and succession planning, organization culture area. I have a connection to that as well, but I'm moving more into this nature-informed world, which is where I'm having a lot of fun. And I am the director of education and certification. So if you get involved, usually you meet with Doug and he gets you set up, and then we figure out what's the best education route for you so that you can get to a point where you can go through the certification process. And then I'm the one who oversees, if you're doing a competence level, I'm the one who oversees the competence verification. So with that, Doug, I think what we'll do is we'll jump in, and you're a business owner. What's business mean to you?
That's a good question. So what does business mean to me? I think that what it is it's 2 organizations creating or developing a relationship, hopefully a trusted relationship, where it's going to be for the mutual benefit or gain of both as they work together. So as an example, when I work with organizations, it's with the understanding that I'm bringing value and that that's going to help them move along. And conversely, the relationship I have with them is going to be one that I'm going to learn and grow as well as a result of the interaction with them.
Yeah, so we often talk about, small business and what role people have. Some people are the entrepreneur who started it. Some people are the employee in it. Some of those small businesses grow to big businesses. It's a way for us to think about the organization of work where there's an exchange takes place. Doug has mentioned about this sort of trusted way of doing things and sharing value. And no matter how big you are, that's really what it's about, is a trusted two-way connection. And today is not really about us sort of going through all different kinds of businesses and different roles that you have. You can take a word like stakeholder and figure out all the different stakeholders involved with businesses. Then you can take a look at charitable organization, take a look at the government. That's not what we're attempting to do here. We're just reminding ourselves is that there is this notion of exchange. It's trusted, there's value there. And what it means often is you're getting paid. Now, you can have a business and do volunteer work through it as well. There's corporate responsibility kind of approaches as well. We're sort of leaning into a little bit of all of that, but we just wanted to remind us of the word business. And I think it'd be important to just go over what we mean by mentoring from an IMC point of view. Doug?
Yep, most definitely. So mentoring is a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and mentee are going to learn and develop on a personal and professional basis.
So there is this notion of learning and development and growth, both for the mentor and the mentee. You've heard two-way, trusted, in terms of the business, mentoring, because in a sense, mentoring can be a bit of a business, right? And that's why we're shooting the video today. But equally, this mentoring connection arrangement can be volunteer, right? So again, it's just looking at it, reminding us what these words are about, because we wanted to share with you what might be the 10 essentials of business. Because some of you have been asking us, okay, I'm thinking about starting a business. How do I do it? Who do I get in touch with? Is there some examples I can work? We get questions like that all the time. And Doug gets questions like that, connected through Quora. And Quora is, again, Doug, if people don't know?
Yeah, Quora is a website that people can post questions. And what ends up happening is that most of the time they get routed to somebody that can respond to those questions, or that's probably the case for probably 98% of the queries and that. But you can go in and post a question and somebody will reply back with a potential answer, and you can continue to keep posting supplemental questions of that to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and then they have their most viewed writers, so that's people that are fairly consistent in responding to questions and stuff like that. So it's a good place to go if you're looking for kind of a quick answer to a business problem, or there's, I think, 2 or 3 categories on there for mentoring. So if you're not sure about where should I go to find a mentor in this genre, you probably will get an answer if you post that as a question.
Yeah, and you can use something like Google Scholar as another place in which to go if you've got questions, and obviously the Google search or whatever search engine that you're using to be able to get to where you want to go. But these essentials that we want to share with you, just again highlight, all right, these 10 essentials, these 10 elements, just to get you started. Because I guess from a Quora question point of view, out of every 10 questions or so, how many would be business related that you're answering? 1, 2, 5, 6? What do you think?
The ones that I answer, I would say probably at the most 2 to 3, and the rest are very specific to mentoring.
Yeah. And when we do, like, we have a YouTube channel, the International Mentoring Community. When you go look at mentoring and that, there's a lot of concepts, kind of interviews and videos to see. I don't know if there's a lot of, okay, how to set up the business of mentoring, because often mentoring is seen very much more through a volunteer lens. But I think as we get into it, I think you will see that mentoring is likely to start becoming more of a business. And that's why we're attempting to get ahead of that curve a little bit, so we can help you with your decisions about opening up a mentoring business. So let's take a look at the first 5. And these 5, not in particular order, but they often sort of are that front component, and then in the back is the second 5. That's a possible way to look at it. Again, you can discern as you listen in what you think, and you might actually reorder them. Great. All right, let's just get started and have some fun here. So the first essential is the notion of clients, customers. Another word for that might be mentee, protege, learner. These are words that we use. But I thought what would be helpful is if I work with Doug, I'm going to use Doug as a business owner, and he has a mentoring business. And I'm just going to ask him without giving anything away, because again, it's his business, but just to have a case here to work with, I'm just going to interact with Doug. So Doug, from a client's customer's point of view, who would be your customers and clients?
So I get a lot of referrals, and they can be people from any industry whatsoever. I work with organizations to set up programs within the organization, and I do lots of one-on-one mentoring. Like last night, I had a call from an individual that on the mental health aspect is more than likely I've recommended that they seek professional counseling so that's kind of gives you sort of an idea. That was volunteer as well. Um, and then I had one this morning with a young lady from Sweden, and who is looking, we're going to do a series of mentoring sessions. So she's in business in a high-tech startup in Sweden, and she readily admits that she needs some mentoring to help her stay focused and be able to move forward. So, when I take a look at it, I have a combination. I have what's the word? A blended clientele, in that I have some that are paid and some that are pro bono, and they're from every industry that you can imagine.
Great. Well, thank you. So the second essential is product, services, and experiences. And the way that we're using that term is that a service is a customized product. So for example, if you have a book and you want to create a course, the course customizes the book and it becomes a service. And therefore, experiences are customized services. So you might do a retreat. So that might be one example. So from a mentoring point of view, you could do this one-to-one mentoring work that Doug is talking about. And that is a customized service because you made it specially. He used a really good example of this young woman out of Sweden. That would be an extended experience versus maybe there's some times where you might just do 1 or 2 connections and the person's got what they need and they move on. But sometimes there's longer, and therefore you have to customize that experience of that service. Doug, for example, you've got some books. So why don't you just talk about the progression that you have of product, services, and experiences within your business?
I can. So you've already touched on, one of the services is the one-to-one mentoring. There's also, I also will do group mentoring, where I will facilitate a conversation between a number of individuals to be able to help us move forward. And a great place for some of that to take place is in the IT sector is one place, and the other was through working with some entrepreneur programs and stuff like that, because we've gone through one where we had a cohort of, what was there, 4 or 5 business owners, relatively young entrepreneurs, and we went through a process of me just guiding them by asking questions and actually getting them to share their own ideas back and forth, but it was facilitated through the mentoring process. So, we've definitely got the one-to-one stuff, like I mentioned, and the group mentoring. I also offer a service that I've called mentoring versus termination. So if you're looking at terminating an employee, let me spend 5 1-hour sessions with them with the idea in mind of doing a behavioral change to get the person back on track and be able to deal with that. One of the other services that we offer is the implementation of, well, first off, a culture assessment to determine whether or not the organization is mentor ready, and then the implementation of a mentoring program and the follow up or follow through that goes along with that.
And you have books?
Yes, I have 2 books at this stage. The Gift of Mentoring was published in 2014, and You Are Not Alone was published actually in January of this year.
So would you say that your services and experiences come out more of the first book or the second book, or a combination?
It's a combination. The first book is kind of your mentoring 101, and the second book, You Are Not Alone, is more specific to mentoring and mental health. So the case studies that I have in each of the books and some of the interviews and stuff that were done are very much driven by my lived experiences.
Okay. So when we talk about products, services, experiences, products are, the tangible and books, right? And there are ebooks, I know, and some people, well, that's not tangible. That we just sort of lump it in there. Okay. Services, these are ones that, might be up to like 3 months of a connection, and they are very particular. They need to get done and they're over with. Experiences tend to, okay, we're into 6 months. There's a longer term connection, or there is an increased frequency. Sometimes the mentoring that can happen is you might get, geez, we're going to meet 3 times a week, right? It's kind of, I don't think you've got any like that at this point, do you?
No.
Yeah, I had a couple of those at one point in time, again, with entrepreneurs, and we were meeting, just about every other day, talking about different things. And it went for, I think it was 4 months with the one and 5 months with the other one. So I just wanted to make sure we understood product, services, and experiences from that perspective. Okay, the third essential is the external communication, internal conversations. Now, this is different than the marketing. I'm going to go over the marketing a little bit later, but it's the notion of your ability to have external communication with people when you're out and out and about, and the internal conversations about those who you are working with. And you can't necessarily do this all by yourself, even if it's your accountant. Being able to have an internal conversation with that person so they can truly help you to run the business. The external is to be able to move with different situations that you find yourself in, to be able to communicate what's going on, because you don't always want to just communicate externally just about a marketing message. Sometimes it's just, hey, what's going on out there? Try and figure out what's taking place. Just have really great conversations and establish relationships. So I wanted to make a distinction between this external communication, internal conversations. And when we get to the marketing piece, I think you'll see that there is a difference and there is a connection between them. But from an external communication, internal conversation, Doug, you're really just by yourself, right? At this
Correct.
point? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
But you also have lots of external communication with lots of different groups, and that's not always about mentoring, correct?
Correct.
Do you want to talk, is there anything about external communication, internal conversations you want to mention about?
Well, the only thing that I would probably touch on is the aspect of the close proximity between mentoring and leadership, and I do end up in conversations around leadership and ask, how do I go about doing that? And the other part that I get involved with is, and this just happened this week actually, was a young person came to me and said that they've been given an opportunity to do some consulting work in another organization, not in their home organization that they're part of today, but in another organization. And they said, I don't know what do I need to have in place in order to set this up so I can do this. And so it was a matter of, very quickly sketching out, here are some things to think about, here you need to go here, you need to do this, yeah, and all of those things. So that, that's mentoring. And really, when you think of it, that is mentoring, because you're going on a journey with this person and you're providing guidance. And if they need additional help, as I always do, I always say, if you need additional help, come back to me, and we'll continue to see what else we need, what other holes there are that we need to fill in.
Yeah, this communication part, Doug shared a little bit. If you follow the ripple effect, yeah, there's mentoring and there's succession planning and organization culture, he does. But also he talks about leadership, and then that leadership out into even a wider understanding about what's leading and managing, right? And then maybe being able to bring it back. So what I'm attempting to get to here is helping you to understand is that don't get set that the only topic is what it is you're working on. You also have to figure out how those tentacles go out, how that ripple effect takes place. If you use mentoring as your central, how does it go out? How does it go out? Because the internal conversations is sort of like almost the opposite way. What's going on out there, bringing it back into your organization, so you can have the internal conversations amongst your stakeholders, like all the people, not just your customers and clients. The avatar, there's another way that people talk about it, but it may be about someone who helps you to prepare your pictures that goes up on your different transmedia channels, right? These kind of things as well. Okay, the fourth essential is resources, and what we're referring to here is the time, effort, and money that you have available. Depending on what situation you have in, you might have a lot of time, or you may have a small amount of time. Again, you may have lots of effort, may have a small amount of effort. Maybe I've got a lot of money and I've stored it up to be ready, and sometimes people are just bootstrapping, right? There's this notion of the resources that you're going to allocate and truly understand where you are from a time, effort, and money point of view. Anything you want to share there from your perspective, even lived experience for your business?
Well, I think that one of the big things, and I had this conversation just the other day, was around understanding the value that you bring and the cost of what that value is, and not wanting to undervalue it, and then you create a pricing issue that you're going to be struggling with. So if there's a couple things that stand out for me, is number one, understanding what it is, product and service, and what the price is to actually deliver those products and services, and being able to communicate that, and then understanding how much effort is required to put those into practice. Because what if I have 4 or 5 people knocking at the door? Then what? How do I manage that, all of a sudden, that influx of interest in what it is that I offer?
Great. Okay. Well, the next one is you, and who travels with you. However, if you look at the show more notes, you'll see the first U is all capitalized. The second one has a capital Y, small OU, and then who travels with you. What we're attempting to bring out here is the notion of the peopleship, right? There are those that you're interacting with, the you, all right, who are helping you in your business. There's you yourself and taking care of yourself. And then who do you want to travel with you, which could be a mentor to you. All right, could be a coach. It depends what it is that you're looking for at the moment. So this is just a reminder about persons that you're interacting with, all right, who are supporting you in what it is that you're doing, and making sure that you take care of yourself. Because a lot of times when people get into business, they can find themselves in a not great spot after a little bit, and then they wonder why they're tired, or wonder why they've got this illness, or why things aren't working the way they need to, is because a lot of times they didn't take care of themselves. Any thoughts there from a you, and who travels with you?
Well, and taking care of yourself, especially nowadays, is we see a huge increase in anxiety, depression, and stress. And if I don't know, in fact, I had a conversation just the other day with somebody, that's what they're going through right now and they're in business. And, you know, if we don't nip that in the bud, it's going to progress and continue to get worse. And then, you know, we can only imagine what the end results could very well be. And that's not what we want. So, you know, you need to, like the call I had this morning, I said, you need to carve out some me time in there so that you can take care of yourself. I said, even if it's, you know, disconnect from what it is you're working on and plug in your headset and play some music or go for a walk at lunchtime. But it's to take that extra time that's just for you to be able to recharge, re-energize, and sort of clear that energy that is causing you um, to not be 100%.
And as you build out your business, that you, that capital U, which is you and those that you're working with, is make sure it's something similar to what Doug has done. Make sure that they're taken care of. Their wealth, WELLTH, their well-being, their well-living is taken care of, right? So that you can, in a sense, be able to celebrate their achievements and their accomplishments together. So that's the fifth one. So those first five, clients and customers, product, services, and experiences, external communication, internal conversations, resources like time, effort, and money, you, and who travels with you, sort of are very abstract out there. There's lots of variables that happen. The next five are really, you're getting in and you've got to really tighten up your understanding of these ones, because they're what are going to move you forward, all right, to be able to benefit from the first five. So the five coming in, and then how do you deal with it going out? These are the six essentials, the five essentials to be able to have that happen. So the first one is this notion of market, message, media mix. So there's a market, in other words, that you're touching into, and Doug has shared lots of different markets he's worked. Then the message that goes with each of those markets, the media that you want to use, and how you mix all of those together. There's things like momentum that goes with that. All right. How do you mesmerize? How do you maximize? How do you minimize? Like, you can go lots of M words along that. So the notion of really understanding that market, that story, that gets you in the other world, sort of like brand, right? And unique selling propositions, you know, different words that they're used to be able to bring the marketing story forward. So I'm not going to ask you to talk about how you market or anything like that, Doug. Is there anything in particular that you want to mention? If not, then I'll just move on.
No, there's nothing in particular.
Okay, so number 7 is technology and techniques. In today's world, there's technology to galore. There are apps that you can create. There's the websites. There are all the transmedia channels you can use. There's the cameras you can get to shoot your YouTube videos, or to be able to use different services to create transcripts off your YouTube video so that you can write an article to put it up in your blog. There's so many different technologies and therefore techniques that go with that. And a lot, you know, in the last year, for example, in particular, there's a lot of artificial intelligence support to writing blog articles and writing transmedia messages. There's lots and lots about technology and techniques that it can be quite overwhelming. And if there's anything that I have learned, all right, is you can't be in all places at the same time. And that's why I use a couple, right, and that I focus on. And mine, because of the work that I do, is very much the YouTube channel from a video point of view, and LinkedIn. And I will start to see if I can't build up an audience on Pinterest, because I'm going to be doing a lot of writing and creating of one-page information sheets that people can get a hold of. And I'm just going to see if I can't grow it from that perspective. And I'll just put occasional messages up a lot of the other channels. But again, you may have something as different as what you pick up, what you're doing. Doug, anything you want to add there?
No.
Okay. Number 8 is finances and assets. I think it's a good idea to understand what your numbers are and where are you with them. Understanding, okay, as we make revenue, but what's the profit? You know, what's the sales numbers that you've got? Being really alert to don't get into the vanity numbers, okay? But in here is to understand some of the measures that you've got to work with and what assets do you actually have. For the longest time, I didn't consider like a lot of what I've created, those messages and those one-page handouts that I had, I never thought of them as assets. Then I thought, hang on a minute, that's a content asset. I could actually bring a lot of those together and shoot a video. Oh, so that actually helped me from a technology point of view go, instead of rewriting over top of my assets, which I used to do, and therefore I'd have to go back and redo them, I just copy and then shift out. So I might have a series of 10, those 10 can become a video. So again, it's how you're using your assets and your numbers and your finances here, and assets in terms of the monies that you have available, right? If you need to dip into it from a rainy day perspective. Any thoughts?
The only thing as a business owner that I've found that was interesting was the whole aspect of copyright and trademarks and all of that stuff. You know, trademarking your company logo, trademarking your company name, and all of those things. And I just learned here the other day the whole aspect of creating a copyright on my book that I thought it was covered under some other part, only to be told that no, it's not. If somebody decided that they wanted to take and run with your book, they could do that because there's no protection. But if you have it copyrighted, then, and it's copyrighted under the literary part, I guess. So you always learn something.
Oh, for sure, and checking those kind of things out. This actually, what he just mentioned, leans into the notion of governance and standards. And the governance component really is about what is the tree decision system that you use. I come up against something, which way do I go? Yes or no? And this is where the PO comes in. I'll talk about it a little bit more. Yes is clear, no is usually clear, PO is somewhere in between. And sometimes if you don't quite know your yes, no, PO is, oh, suppose this happens. Let me propose this to happen. That's the PO part. That's Edward de Bono, his work, and he wrote about PO. And I've kept it in my vocabulary just simply because sometimes it's not always with the business, it's a clear yes and no. Sometimes I may have to go into PO, but I also realize that most times my PO is actually a no until I learn something. And then I get it into my yes. So again, it's the decision tree that I use as I interact with people. But the notion of the standards that go with it, this is the insurance aspect of things. Errors and omissions, right? General liability. A lot of people, if they do events, they forget to actually get event insurance. They think all the other stuff will take care of it. If someone slips or falls at their event, you could be in some doo-doo as well. So there's the governance aspect of making sure that you're following the rules and regulations. So from a mentoring point of view, at the international mentoring community, one of the governance stories that we always talk about is that we've linked what we do from a competence verification to the Criminal Code of Canada 2 and 7.1. We went right back into the environmental, occupational health and safety and said, okay, we're going to link it right into there so that when we go to share what we're doing, we can show that there's a governance there. There's the whole ISO world as well that we're also working with us and to be able to bring that to the foreground so that, you know, the standards, the regulations, industry, your own, these are things that you need to take into consideration. Any other thoughts there, Doug?
Nope.
Okay, number 10 is make sure that you know how to manage and lead your business. And the way that I always express it is manage the safe systems for the persons that yourself and whoever you interact with, even your customers and clients, in other words, for all your stakeholders, but also lead the persons from the safer practices. All right. Don't assume that each person who gets involved with you has got safer practices to be involved with you. So, for example, when we share with people is there's a difference between coaching and mentoring. There's a difference between counseling and mentoring. Know what the lines are so that you don't get yourself into doo-doo, again, because that links back to number 9 from a governance and standards point of view, right? That could get to the finances and assets, especially if you're sued, right? And it may show up in a market message that you don't want out there because someone's going, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They hurt me. That you don't want any of that kind of stuff. That's why this market message media, technology techniques, finances, assets, governance and standards, manage safe systems, lead safer practices is sort of, they are really chugging in that background, working with you, right, to get the other 5 essentials out there and interacting. I didn't give you a chance to talk about manage safe systems or lead safer practice. Anything you want to add there, Doug?
No, no.
Okay. So I think that with Doug's example about what we're attempting to get to and some of the example work that I've shared with you, I'm hoping that we've covered off the 10 business essentials for you. And you can reorder them from what we have shared with you and to bring them to the foreground. But a lot of times they're chasing each other, okay? Because your clients and customers that you want to interact with, well, there may be a technology techniques that you have to take into consideration to get them in to meet your product, services, and experiences, which requires you to market, set up your message and your media mix. I think where you know where I'm going is that they do chase each other. But Doug and I thought that what we would do is just share 5 considerations with you. The first one is, and we shot a video about this as well, so you can go back into International Mentoring Community YouTube channel, and it goes like this. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can mentor, and there's no regulations around that, you think that you are a mentor and you want to put your shingle out, that doesn't mean you should, because sometimes you may actually do some damage to yourself, those you're going to interact with, and therefore you may want to develop up a bit more of a business. That's why we went over the 10 essentials, a business approach so that you can really improve, focus, and strengthen your mentoring approach. So just remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The next one is, if you're new to mentoring, Doug and I suggest get certification. Because what it does is it provides a foundation for you to confirm your mentor competence. Just go in and get the certification. We also suggest to those who are new, they've been in it, they're going with it, it might be a great idea to come in and get your certification. Yes, it's available through the International Mentoring Community, but it's there to build out your foundation. If you want to use a build metaphor, it's there to put in your seedbed, to grow your mentoring approach, depending on which one you want to work with. But it's an idea to really to develop the concepts and practices of mentoring so that you can go forward and take care of these business essentials, all right, certainly from a governance and standards point of view. Anything you want to add to those 2 at all?
No, all I would do is adamantly stress how important the certification is, especially if you're looking at getting into the business of mentoring.
And that's another great, and thanks for reminding us, is that if you want to do a mentoring for the workplace program, right? In other words, you want to bring mentoring so it's for the workplace, it's for what it is that you're doing. Maybe you're within that workplace or you're using your business shingle to get into workplaces, then certification is certainly helps bring you forward with that. Doug knows that. He's had that experience so already. The third consideration is certainly value the approach of mentoring. In other words, develop a mentoring approach. At the same time, you have to be attentive to what lived experience you're letting the mentee into. Because when you do your certification of mentoring, it's about the process of mentoring, the concepts and practices of mentoring. It's not about the domain or discipline of the ideas you're going to be interacting with the mentee. Now, sometimes Doug has gotten to the point from a professional point of view, he can go into a lot of different industries without knowing what they are, but he's there because what he's doing is he's encouraging the mentee to ask questions to be able to use the process of mentoring to get at the ideas that the mentee needs. But he also has, like if someone came to talk to him about, and you correct me if I'm wrong, okay?
Yeah.
Is from a succession planning point of view, he's got great experience in that. So he can give you some tips and tools, right, to be able to assist that. But at the same time, he's caring that he doesn't say to you, you must do these tips and tools and techniques. Anything you want to add to value the approach of mentoring and the lived experience you can share?
No, the big thing that stands out in all that you've said is the aspect of, because I have mentoring as my business, it's what I do for a living. I always need to be reminding myself of the fact that I can't be in a place where I'm telling. I need to be in a place where I'm asking questions to guide people to the answers. And the more and more that I do, the more and more they open. And what I'm finding is the more people are willing to share different challenges and stuff that they're dealing with simply because of the approach that I'm taking in starting to build that relationship.
And because it's two-way trusted, what you're doing is actually encouraging them to ask questions of you. And often when you start asking questions, you start finding out, hey, I actually have part of the answer here. I just may need a little slightly reframing. And that's the beauty of mentoring, because not only it encourages the involvement, but it really gets at the evolvement of the mentee as well. I touched on this one earlier, which is develop and use your decision tree of yes, no, and PO. But always remain alert to PO, all right? And don't stay in PO a lot. Remember, if it's a suppose or propose, then get to the no or the yes, all right? Don't stay in those PO situations, because what it does is it just adds more and more, and sometimes it can actually become wasting to you, is because you're spending way too much time looking at versus, okay, I need to make a yes or I need to make a no, and let's move forward. But often it can help, all right, when you're mentoring, is you might look at a PO response to a question. You might go, you know what, I propose that why don't we each go look at something, come back, and we'll talk about it next time we get together. That's a PO, right? Versus giving a yes or no response to the question. And a lot of mentoring, to be fair, is not a yes/no response, because the questions that are being asked are about actually opening up more of what's going on. It's not about, I'm just going to answer yes or no to things, because that's really not mentoring. That's just, answering some base questions, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. So again, we've touched on it. So the fifth one I want to just go over, and I'm going to have Doug talk a lot more about this one, but I'm just going to share it, is you are growing and developing as a mentor. So edit, which is add, alter, and delete continuously. What's the importance of this continuous learning component, Doug? You've been at this for how long now, and are you still learning?
Oh, every time I've been at this since 2000, formally 2009. I was doing this before and didn't know what it was that I hadn't put a a name around what it was I was doing, but I was actually mentoring people with some of the teams that I was leading, and I was using mentoring techniques and just didn't know it. But it's so important for us as mentors to be open and flexible to learn no matter how we learn. And it can be as simple as learning from the conversation you have with your mentee about a certain subject that they've brought up that, gee, I don't know how should I deal with this? I don't know how to deal with this. And so together, the two of you work your way through it and come up with what seems to be a plausible way of dealing with it. But it's so important. I always tell people that here's the beauty of mentoring is that I learn and develop and grow, and it's a continuous process, because what I tell myself is that every time I'm going to go into a mentoring session, I'm going to come away from that learning something about the person, the organization, and more importantly, about myself and how I respond to different situations.
And that is something you can probably put on the tombstone, right? Is
Yeah.
continuous learning. I'm one who did continuous learning. And it's
Yeah.
just something don't give up. I've been doing it for quite a few years myself. I didn't always know that that's what it was. I came to know myself as a facilitative mentor, and how I bring that out. And I make that as a very distinctive decision, is that I'm not an instructive coach. I'm not. I can do it. It's just not what I prefer to do. I'm a facilitative mentor. So that's how I frame my business as well. So we're hoping as that 10 business essentials and the 5 considerations around business. If you are going to hang up a shingle and you think that you're going to move forward, maybe go back and listen to this again and just pick out what is important for you at this point in time. You can get a hold of us through the internationalmentoringcommunity.com. If you want to chat, you can leave a message here with this video, and we'll certainly get back to you if you have questions about setting up your own business, so we can help out. It's not one of the areas that we're saying we have an actual program about how to set up a business, all right? But we can get on a call with you and help you take a look at that. That's not to say, hey, we're business, right? We're entrepreneurs. If there's enough people who came forward, guess what? We probably would do some work around that as well. So with that, I just want to remind you, Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Mountain on YouTube, the International Mentoring Community, and the Mental Health Community on Facebook is another one. I think I just may have made that name incorrect. What was it again, Doug? The Facebook one?
Yeah, it escapes me at this stage. I should write it down.
I
I
think
know
it's
where to.
mental health mentoring community or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it is.
yeah.
And also, it sometimes these videos show up on my YouTube channel, Wealth Learning TV. Okay, so that occasionally, and this is one that will be up on that channel as well. So with that, I think that sort of covers off what we want to take a look at. And guess what, Doug? We headed into almost 50 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't think we were going to go there, but I'm glad we did, because I think we covered off some great insights for someone who is looking at the business of mentoring and looking at it through the lens of yes, no, and PO. As with any time that we're doing this mentoring lounge, because I do the entry and remind people to subscribe and get involved and write comments and do all that, I always ask Doug to take us out. So I'm going to have him do that. When I know he's done, I'm just going to say take care, and we're going to close off the broadcast.
So for our listeners today, my suggestion or recommendation to you is to take care of you and embrace continuous learning.
So with that, everyone, take care.